All right, let's go ahead and get started. We do have a good number of people actually watching from our Facebook Live, which is great to hear. So if you are on Facebook and do have any questions for Brenda throughout this presentation, feel free to put your questions in there and I will help Brenda get those questions to Brenda so she can answer them. If you are watching here in the Zoom, feel free to comment in the chat with any questions you might have for Brenda. But I want to thank you so much for being here this morning and giving us this presentation on what to do with your inbox when those emails are just out of control. We've been, at home right now, or some of us for quite some time, and some of us have gotten quite busy. So maybe deleting some of those ad emails or other emails that you don't need to necessarily look at right away are just piled up. So we would love to get more information from you on basically how to get that number down and kind of get more peace in your inbox. So from there, Brenda, please take it away.
Great. Thank you so, so much. And let's see, here we go. Share screen. So here we go. Email overwhelm. And that's why we're here today. So I'm a professional organizer. The name of my business is At Your Fingertips Organizing. And so I help clients with not only organizing, but workplace productivity. And to me, emails is one of the largest problems that I hear clients talking about. So let's just go through the presentation. And as Amanda said, please type in any questions that you have, and I'm more than happy to try to answer them. So is this what your inbox looks like when you open up your email program? Do you have, what number is that? I don't know. There are so many nines, there's no commas. It just goes on and on and on. So no matter how many emails are in your inbox, there is no magic number as to the number that you should have there. It's really a personal preference. It's up to you. But if this is a problem for you, whether you have 10 or 100 or 9 million, whatever, that's what we're here to talk about today. So today, let me just go through a quick agenda. I will cover the high cost of an unmanaged email inbox. So just to let you know the ramifications if you don't take control of it. And then I will talk about basic steps to clean it up. And that's really, I assume, why you are here today. So why don't I just move on? So what is your why? Why are you watching today? Obviously, there's an issue with your email inbox. Is it that you have too many? Is it that you can't find your emails? Is it that you're just wasting too much time? So let's just go through some of these whys. So what are some of the costs, or the high costs? So are you missing appointments and events because they're buried in your inbox? Are you missing out on networking? Are you missing out on business opportunities? Maybe a client or potential client has sent you an email wanting to chat with you and you lost it, you deleted it, you never saw it, it went to spam, whatever. So you could be missing out not only on business opportunities, but also on potential revenue, which is huge. That's a huge problem to have. Also, when you have too many emails, it wastes your time. Why? Because you are wasting time going into your email box looking, or your inbox looking for those emails, and your time could be better spent. And then obviously if time equals money, then you are wasting valuable money looking for those emails. And another reason, it obviously reduces productivity. So, and here we go. Here are some more issues. What's your why? So the emails you want to need may not be at your fingertips. I had to throw that in since that's the name of my business, At Your Fingertips Organizing. A lot of people keep their to-dos that arrive via email in your inbox. Specifically an unorganized inbox. So if that's what you do, and I would say, I'm going to guess that maybe 50% of people do that, you may lose track of them and they may not get done. And that's a huge problem. Looking at an unmanaged inbox or a full inbox is mentally overwhelming. It's physically overwhelming. And last but not least, if you don't get back to people who have emailed you, it could damage your reputation, whether that's personally or professionally. So I think those are very huge reasons. And I don't know if any of those have applied to you or not, but I assume at least one has. So let's just look at some stats, or just one stat actually. So according to a study in 2019, now again, this is a little dated last year, but people send or receive 128 business emails per day. Now, I can't help but wonder, how many do you get? Is it 128? Is it 200? I assume it's a lot. So I'm not going to go into the details down here, but basically they're saying that if you add together not only the number of hours or whatever of time that you're losing because of that, and also because you're wasting time because you're checking your email several times a day, that could eat up 54% of your work year. So a little over half of your work year, which I think is huge. And I don't know about you, but a lot of people, particularly business professionals, check their emails several times a day. And that may be a requirement for your job. I understand that. But if, well, let's talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so far we've covered number one, which really is the high cost of an unmanaged email inbox. So now I'm going to get right to the meat of this presentation, which I'm sure is what you have been waiting for. The basic steps to clean it up. So number two. So first and foremost, it's critical that you develop a strategy for each account that you want to clean up. So typically people have more than one email account. Typically there's a work email account, there's a personal email account, and some people have a third and even fourth email account. So number one, decide which email account you want to start with. I suggest doing one email account at a time, and maybe you want to start with one that is not as important, maybe an other or a personal versus your work, until you get the hang of it. But document the number of emails in your inbox currently, whatever inbox you start with. So let's just assume it's personal. And the reason we do that, it's like when I work with clients on physical clutter or paperwork clutter, I want you to have a point of reference later. So this will be your before. And then when you're done with the project, I want you to be able to see how far you've come and how much progress you've made. So document the number of emails that you currently have in your inbox. And that includes both read and unread. And then secondly, in terms of developing a strategy, I want you to develop a goal, because without a goal, we're just wandering aimlessly, aren't we? I mean, if your goal is to clean up your email inbox, but you don't have, it's not a SMART goal, then, and what does that mean? Specific, time sensitive, achievable, realistic, I forgot the, and measurable, I'm sorry, I forgot the M. If it's not a SMART goal, then you have no measure. So what is the number of emails that you want to get down to in your inbox? So the ones that you physically see in your inbox. Is it an actual number? Is it 10? Is it 100? You know, what is that magic number for you? Or some people don't have a magic number, but they simply don't want to have to scroll down to see all of their emails. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You've probably been on email for years, right? It's that scroll, you keep scrolling down and down and down. And some people just don't want to have to scroll. So whatever your goal is, document that. So again, those two things, the number of emails in your inbox and what is the number that you want to get to. That's step A. Okay, step B, and number one is absolutely critical. So I do help clients clean up their email inboxes. There are some people that, have 100 and it drives them crazy. There are people that have thousands and it drives them crazy. So it's very personal, but I do help people. But if you want to do it on your own, and even if you work with me, step number one is learn your email program inside and out. So the one that I'm going to reference the most today is Gmail. A lot of people have Gmail accounts for personal. Even my business account feeds through Gmail. So learn it inside and out, because I want you to be completely comfortable in knowing how to handle your emails. And again, whether you're doing it on your own, and even for people who work with me, if it's an email program that I don't use every day, it's even more important that they learn their email program inside and out. Step number two that we'll talk about is deleting unnecessary emails. Step number 3, we're going to talk about folders. Oh, I see a typo here, whatever. A number of the max number you want and what to name them. And last but not least, we're going to talk about rules and filters. So let's talk about deleting your emails. That's really the one of the first steps to cleaning up your inbox. It's like clutter, all right? When you have a pile of clutter or a pile of paperwork, you want to get rid of the stuff that you no longer want or need. So you can really focus on what's left. So you can sort your emails by a number of different ways. And I suggest using all of these several times, different, whatever works for you. So you can sort your emails by sender. Which, if you sort it by sender, then if you have 20 emails from Brenda Tringali, then I will show up at the top or at your fingertips organizing. All my emails to you will be grouped together. So you can decide, you can make some critical decisions about what you want to do with those. Do you want to delete all the emails from me? Maybe they're not necessary. You need to think about it for each and every person. Secondly, you can sort your emails by subject, because as I'm sure you probably know, if there's an email thread that's going and you sort by subject, then all those emails with the same subject line will show up together. So again, this is giving you critical information because maybe it's a subject line that is still relevant. Maybe you still need to refer back to it. So you want to keep those. Maybe it's an email thread that was important 5 years ago. You absolutely no longer need to reference it. So you feel that you can delete it. Again, it's your call. It's very subjective. And then last but not least, you can sort by date. So typically, emails appear in your inbox, typically by the most recent on top, unless you've changed things or, you have your own preference. So some people like to start with the most recent emails and do it that way. And some people even like to switch the order around. And I apologize, they are mowing the lawn today. Unbelievable. Story of my life. You can reverse the order of the date so that the oldest appear on top, and you can start deleting or looking at the emails that are the oldest. So what does that do? Again, it gives you that time, that point in time, and you can say, oh my God, this was 5-10 years ago. I absolutely don't need this anymore. So that's why I suggest sorting them by all of these. I think all 3 would work. You can decide which ones you want to do in which order. You don't have to sort by sender first. Play around with it. See what you feel most comfortable with. See how you make the most progress. Now, why do I have a picture of weights here? Because I equate organizing, decluttering, sorting, purging, whatever. I equate that to physical exercise, all right? So when you first start exercising, your muscle is weak, it's painful, you don't know what to do. But the more you exercise, the more you lift weights, let's say, then you're going to improve. It's going to be easier for you to make, to lift those weights. And so really the weights refer to your ability to make those decisions regarding what emails to keep and which ones to delete. So the more often you make those critical decisions regarding what to keep and what to delete, the better you will get at it. So again, equivalent to exercising or lifting weights, whatever. You have to really work that muscle to get better at it. You're not going to simply wake up one day and be able to sort through all your emails and make great decisions without some practice. And that's why I suggest starting maybe with a personal email address or inbox or something that's not as critical. So here's a woman, and she is buried in paperwork, right? She's overloaded. She's almost physically buried, but obviously she is overwhelmed. Now, how does this make you feel? Again, I know we're talking about emails, but there is a correlation. So if this causes you stress, I mean, I can feel my blood starting to boil right now. I'm getting, ooh, stressed out, then would you also feel that way if your email inbox looked something like this? So this is the inbox. There are a million emails in there, not a million. Obviously, I am exaggerating once again, but to me, this is very overwhelming. And so the caption, is this okay or not? Honestly, it varies from person to person. Maybe it's okay with you and it doesn't bother you. But I'm sensing that because you're here today watching, whether you're watching via Zoom or you're watching Facebook Live or watching the recording, that having this many emails in your inbox is not okay and that you want to do something about it. So what's another way to do something about it? So let's just say that for the sake of argument, I'm going to go back to the last slide. Let's just say that you have already completed step number 1, which was to delete all the unnecessary emails in your inbox. Okay, so these are all in your inbox. You've deleted all the ones you no longer want to need, and this is what's left. Now, I don't know how many are here, but whatever. There's a lot, and so would it do you any good to leave these red processed emails in your inbox? Again, these are not unread, these are red. So to me, that I see clutter when I see this. When new emails come into my mailbox, I want to be very able to recognize, or able to easily recognize which ones are new, which ones are old, whether they're bolded or not. So I would like to see these out of the inbox and maybe filed somewhere, as long as they're not critical. If they're critical and you need to see them, and you want to see them, that's fine, leave them. But for the ones that are not as critical and you simply want them for reference, then we need to do something about them. And so the next step is folders. I love folders. It's a way to move an email that's in your inbox out of your inbox into a folder so that it's still there. You can access it if you want, if you need to, but yet it's not cluttering up your inbox. Now, folders. Okay, so some of you probably use folders when I give this presentation. A lot of people don't use folders. So this will be basic information for those who never use folders. But let's talk a little bit about them, and hopefully, even if you're a pro at using folders, you will learn something today. So what you want to do is you want to start with primary folders. So that would be, the individual folders for major categories. Is there a magic number as to how many you want? So what I have learned through experience is the fewer, the better, believe it or not, because if you start using folders, it may be difficult for you to remember in which folder you have placed an email, right? And a red email. So by having fewer folders, then it should be easier for you to find them. And I'll give an example soon. Okay, what should you call them? And people say, okay, I need to know, what does a professional organizer recommend that I call these folders? Again, just like in general with organizing, there is no right answer. It varies from person to person. So if you're doing this project on your own, you come up with your own names for whatever works for you. If I were working with you side by side or virtually, then I would work with you to help you decide what to call them. But again, it's very personal. And then we're going to talk a little bit about folder hierarchy here. So I mentioned the primary folders. So those are the primary folders, the first ones. However, if you want, you can also create a subfolder, or what they call a nested folder. So that would be a subcategory underneath the primary folder. And I believe on my next slide, I do have a sample of that. So let me just go through that and just show you. Okay, so these are some folder name examples. So this is actually an example of someone who, folders that someone has used. So some people like to, and actually I use this first one, skim, then delete. And I'll get into more detail about that later when we talk about rules and filters. But so I'm going to skip over that one right now. Some people use a folder called waiting. So what does that mean? That means that this is something that you need, it's in process. Maybe you're waiting for someone to do something or whatever. So, but you don't want it to appear in your inbox. So it certainly can appear in your inbox, but it's your reminder that you just need to do something with it. And actually, I'm going to suggest, and I'm not going to make this change right now, but there should not be bullets here. So business should be another, in this example, another primary folder. Personal should be a primary folder, and receipts should be a primary folder. And those are actually primary folders that I use. So any email that I get that's business related that I no longer need to access goes into my business folder, which is very, very different from my personal folder. So personal folder, I would put, emails from family, friends, things like that. Only the ones that I want to keep, of course. But again, it's a very different category than business. And then I have another one called receipts. That's another primary folder. Now, why do I have receipts? I could put that into business, absolutely. However, whenever I make a purchase, whether it's business, personal, whatever, I get a digitized receipt, I put it in my receipts folder. But then I have created subfolders for that folder. And so one is for 2020. And so the reason I do this is, again, I own my own business. I want to be able to access my receipts very easily for business, for tax purposes, whatever, even personal. So anything that comes in during the year of 2020 would go in that one. Anything that's older is in a folder called 2019 and older, because very rarely do I need to access that. So that's just one example of folders and some of the possible names that you can name them. So I'm going to talk very briefly about folders in 3 different programs. So this is Outlook. This is an old slide, but basically this is how you would create a folder. It looks something like this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I also have Apple, and they have a different way of creating a folder. So what I'm talking about is creating a folder. But also let's look at Gmail. Now, Gmail does not call them folders. They call them labels. And again, I don't want to get into the logistics of this because we could really just spend all day just talking about this and how to create folders. It's very easy to figure out how to create them. Either Google it or check out YouTube, whatever, for whatever program, email program you use. But I suggest that you definitely get familiar with it, know how to create folders. It can be a little confusing. Okay, let's talk a little bit about filters and rules. And this is really where most people, I'm going to guess 90% of people that I work with do not use filters or rules. It may even be higher than that. And this is yet another step to weeding your email inbox out, down, whatever. So again, the first step was deleting. First, you want to delete all the emails that you no longer want or need. The second step was creating folders. So for the emails that remain, you want to put them in folders so they are moved out of your inbox so you don't see them, okay? And so theoretically, all that should be left, theoretically, are maybe things that you're waiting on, things that are pending, things that you're still working on, and then of course, any new emails that come in. So this third step, filters and rules, really applies to how to handle new emails that come into your mailbox. And it really, it saves so much time. They're a little confusing. They're a little complicated to set up. I always recommend practice because they are a little confusing. But let's just talk a little bit about it. So what does it do? A filter. A filter, as you can see, there's a pool. So a pool filter would filter impurities out of the water. A colander would filter water out of, let's say, pasta. But what we want to do is, really, let me just go back to that 1 second. So we want to remove the, we want to tell our email system what to do with the emails before they even hit our inbox. Okay, so it's a great feature to have. It does take practice, but it really is great. So, you can do that in Outlook, you can do it in Apple, you can do it in Gmail, again, where I want to really spend most of the time. And I love filters because I can identify what to do with emails before they hit. So let me just give you some examples here. So let me see. Okay. So let's say that you get email newsletters, okay? Let's say that all right, how about a weekly coupon? Maybe that's better, from a store, okay? And I don't know about you, some of these retail outlets or retail stores send 1 million emails, maybe one a day. So if you no longer want that to hit your inbox, and you want it to go to a particular folder that you've set up, you can set that up here. So in Gmail, it's a particular way to do it. It's a 2-screen process, but you would pull up the email that you received. In this particular example, I won't even mention the store, but so you click on the email that you want to receive, and then there's a number of options. You can tell, if you said that any email that comes from any particular email address, you can tell it to either skip the inbox, you can have your system mark it as read, you can star it, you can apply a label or a folder. Again, in Gmail, they're called folders. You can have it move to a particular folder before it even hits your email inbox. You could forward it to a certain address. You could have your system automatically delete it. You could tell your Gmail system never send it to spam, or always mark it as important, or never mark it as important. You can categorize it, and you can choose a category. And also the nice thing, you may not be able to see this on the bottom, but in Gmail, if you have, now in this particular case, there was one other email that had this email address. So if there are other emails with that same email address, you can also click the button that says apply this filter to one matching email. And then you would click create filter, and that filter would be created so that whatever instructions you've told your email system, it will do with all those emails that come in from that email account. So let's just talk about some other examples. So I think I mentioned, I personally have set up a folder called Skim Then Delete. And I put the number 1 or 2 in front of it, so it would appear at the top of my folders list. And so any emails, for example, that are, let's say, reading only, reference only, not action items, maybe they come from stores, they come from who newsletters, whatever. I have them go to the folder marked Skim Then Delete. So I know that when I check that folder, for the most part, anything in there should be something that I should just be able to skim through, and then the ultimate destination of the next action is for me to delete it. I typically don't need to save it in a folder long term. It's just one and done, okay? You're over with it, and that's it. You don't need to look at it again. You could do this from association emails. You could do it from, I'm trying to think, stores. There are just so many different examples. So it really, it depends on your preferences and what you want to do with your emails. Let me see. Let me look at some of the other captions here. Let's see. Delete it. Well, I don't typically use that. You could say always mark it as important, and then this way it would be marked as important. every time in your email box. So it's whatever the preference is. You could mark it as red if you want, or put a star next to it. So whatever works for you. So I know that's a lot of information. So again, I just want to go back and kind of recap the 3 major steps before we move on. Let me just move ahead here 1 second before we move on to best practices. So we've talked about the high cost of an unmanaged email inbox. And then we've talked about basic steps to clean it up. Strategy, which was, the goals and how many do you want to get into. And then we've talked about the 4 major steps, in my opinion, to reduce or organize the emails in your box. So the first one was make sure you learn your email program inside and out. The second one was delete those emails that you no longer want, or move them somewhere, whatever you want to do with them, whatever you want to call it, but delete the ones that you no longer want, so that all that is left are the emails that you want to hang on to for whatever reason, for reference, whatever. And for those emails, you want to consider putting them in folders. You don't have to, but you may want to consider it, and then that would remove them from your inbox. Now, some clients create a folder called to do or action, and anything that they need to take action on. So again, it's different than waiting. It's something that you really need to take action on. They create a folder and they move that email into that folder called take action or do or whatever. I don't do that. Personally, I don't recommend it, but if that works for you, that's fine. I don't recommend it because it doesn't work for me. So there are different types of learners in this world, right? We have visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic, tactile, all different kinds of learners. I'm a visual learner. I need to see things. And so my preference is to keep those emails that I need to take action on in my inbox so I see them. That doesn't mean they're not on my to-do list. They already are, but I want to be able to see it. So again, it's very personal, but just think about the different folders that you want to create. And then last but not least, and this is really proactive, once, this is how to handle new emails coming in. It's creating those filters, as they're called in Outlook, in Apple, but in Gmail, they're called rules. Now let's talk a little bit about maintenance. So what I've done, I see we're a little beyond the half hour, or the halfway point, I should say. So what I've done is I've got a few more slides here that talk about habits and best practices with your emails once you have reduced them and once you've created your folders and all that good stuff. It's about habits to keep that going forward. So this shouldn't take long, but I did want to allow some free time at the end in case people have questions. So that's what we're doing here. So, okay. So once you've reduced your emails, you want to create and maintain good habits, because, and I do this with clients, not only with emails, but in any decluttering project, again, whether it's physical clutter, whether it's possessions, whether it's paperwork, whatever. Not only do you want to get rid of the clutter, okay, but you need to identify, how did you get there in the first place, right? I mean, this took years to accumulate, right? You didn't wake up and have 10,000 emails in your inbox overnight. So what habits led to you getting all those emails? And let's talk about what new habits you should create and how to create them and when to do them so that you don't fall back, you don't regress. So what new habits? So again, I can't go into a little detail about habits because that's very personal. That's done on a customized basis with each client, but let's just go through this. So I love this slide. So before I get to the detail, let me just say this. So at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about productivity and time lost and how some people check their emails 5 times a day and whatever. Okay, so this is something that I want you to think about. So this is once you have cleaned out your email box. Okay, so this is for new emails coming in primarily. How many, I want you to think about it, write down, actually, this is a formula. How many minutes do you spend each day checking email? So for the purpose of this calculation, we're going to say 60 minutes or 1 hour. That's not every time, that's over the course of your day, 60 minutes. And how many times do you want or need to check email? So in this case, the person already, let's say it's you have already cleaned up your email box. You've gotten rid of all that excess. And now you're limited. Let's say you have, what's a good, let's say 25 emails in your inbox or whatever. Maybe you don't get that many now. Let's say for the purpose of this example, you only want to check emails 3 times a day. So maybe you want to check them first thing in the morning, which I don't normally recommend, but anyway, maybe you check them midway through the day, and maybe you check them before you go to bed or toward the evening time. So if that is the case, then you would take that 1 hour or the 60 minutes that you want to dedicate to checking email. You want to divide it by 3 because that's the number of times you want to check emails per day, not 4, not 2, but 3. And that would leave you with 20 minutes. So you are allowing yourself 20 minutes to check email each time. And then you decide, okay, what times do you want to check email? So let's say, again, this is the person, let's say it's you only want to check email 3 times a day. For the purpose of this example, we're saying once at 9 a.m., once at 1 p.m., and once at 5 p.m. Again, it can be whatever times you want to check email. You know, it doesn't have to be these magic times. And then to take it a step further, you actually schedule this on your calendar daily. So at 9 a.m., you're going to have a calendar entry to check email. At 1 p.m., you'll have one, and at 5 p.m., or whatever 3 times you choose, you will have it on your calendar, and you will actually set reminders. And I recommend using a timer. I use a timer. I'm a little neurotic. I actually have a timer that goes off every hour, and that's my cue to switch to a different project. But again, I'm a little neurotic. But and then let's see how this works. Let's see if checking your emails 3 times a day for 20 minutes each time works for you in terms of maintaining your email inbox. Now, maybe you find that that's not enough time, that you need to increase that time, or maybe you want to decrease it over time. But again, it's a great way to develop that critical habit, that muscle, to check your emails, not let them accumulate. And I highly recommend this. I think it's great. Before I do that, I just want to say one thing, because I don't think this is in my presentation, but I think it's key. I don't know about you, but I used to have a habit that I would peek at my emails, see what I had, and not do anything, just to see if anything urgent came in. I recommend that you don't do that anymore. Take that, just say that, you know what, when it's time to check your email, you're going to do it only at that time for those minutes. Because what happens is, I think that's how a lot of emails end up in people's inboxes. They take a peek, they do nothing with it. So they've looked at it once, and then they look at it a second time when it's time to take action. And again, they've wasted time. So don't even peek at your emails in between. Maybe you tell people if it's urgent, they need to contact you, don't email you, call you or text you. Okay, so we're still talking about best practices. So you want to think about what you need to do with each of your emails when you get them. So during those times when you're checking your email, let's say it's 3 times a day, make an immediate decision regarding incoming emails the first time you read them. Again, don't peek, make a decision. So is it something that you can do? Maybe it takes less than 5 minutes. So you can do it right away. Maybe it's something that, maybe it's a larger project, it's not a task, so it's something that you want to defer. So make sure you then take the next step and maybe schedule it on your calendar to spend time on it, or put it on your to-do list. I love productivity. I love David Allen's Getting Things Done and all that stuff. So, make sure you schedule it. Maybe you delegate it if it's not a good use of your time. So if you're a small business owner, you may say, but I don't have anybody. Well, you know what? Maybe you hire an intern or a student, or maybe a virtual assistant, or maybe whatever. Maybe, you know what, you don't necessarily have to delegate it. Maybe it's something you can delegate to your boss or to a coworker, all right? Doesn't necessarily have to be downward. It could be lateral, it could be upward. So try to delegate those that are not a good use of your time. The next one is delete it. Of course, if it doesn't help you in any way, delete it. And then you may want to, unsubscribe or whatever it is if you can, so you don't get those emails anymore. And then the last one is file it for future reference, only if you want or need to. So again, it's that exercise muscle. You've got to make those decisions right away with your incoming emails the first time you read them. Here are some other tips tips that you should think about, whether when you're checking your email or just in general. So first and foremost, turn off all notifications, which I did before this call. So I have not gotten any pop-ups. I don't get incoming calls on my Mac. I am not distracted. I am focused. And that's how you should be during that time when you're checking your emails. Turn off all notifications. I didn't mention this earlier, but this is part of your, let's say, the deleting process. So if you see that you're deleting a lot of emails, maybe it's something you don't need to subscribe to anymore. Let's just say it is a catalog or a newsletter. Let's just say a newsletter that you never read. If you never read it, this is key. Give yourself permission to unsubscribe. And remember, more than likely, you can always resubscribe in the future. But the fewer emails that you have coming in, then the less you have to take action on. So this is critical. So unsubscribe from unnecessary emails. And maybe you want to set limits on the number of unread emails that you have in your inbox. Again, it's up to you, but this works for some people, for other people it doesn't, but it's just another way or another tip. Here's an interesting one. Send fewer emails. And you're probably saying, well, how would that help me? If I'm talking about incoming emails, how would that help me? Well, I'll tell you why. Because if you send a lot of emails, chances are people are going to reply to you, right? Doesn't that make sense? And whether it's a thank you or whatever. So if you send fewer emails, if it's not something that has to be in writing, maybe you just pick up the phone and you call the person. Just think about that. Try to send fewer emails if you can. The next one, set guidelines in advance with people that you email frequently. So I love this one. Let me just give you an example. I have people that this was previous life, whatever. Whenever I sent them an email, they would send a follow-up email that said, thank you. Okay, these people that I emailed all the time. And so what I learned from that is have a communication with people, and don't have it via email. Pick up the phone and call them, but say, hey, you and I email back and forth all the time. Let's set some guidelines or some criteria. And one is, hey, if I send you an email, excuse me, you don't need to reply and say thank you. So it's understood that you got it and that you're grateful that I sent it to you, but you don't need to send me an email to say thank you. So that's just one example of one guideline. Also, and this is my favorite one, subject lines include the action required or the due date. This absolutely drives me crazy when I get emails from people. They will send a long-winded email, and it contains action items, more than one action items. However, and there's a deadline by which I need to do something, theoretically. However, by reading the subject line, you would never know that. So what are some examples? Let me see, do I have them in the next? Nope, okay. So let's talk about some examples. So one email that I received is from someone who is asking me to respond. And in this case, it was, believe it or not, respond within 24 hours and respond to these 3 different questions. Well, you know what? If you don't include that in your subject line, how am I supposed to know that? if it's that time sensitive. So in the subject line, just say something like action required by, whatever date, May 6th at 12 noon. Be very specific. If it's an FYI only, then in your subject line, say FYI only, no action required. So make it idiot proof. That's my favorite expression. And I'm not referring to other people. I'm referring to myself. I love things very easy. I love things idiot proof. So that I don't have to waste more time thinking about it or reading the email to figure out what they want me to do. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about, and I can't believe it's, oh my God, almost over. We only have about 15 minutes left. We've talked about the high cost of an unmanaged email inbox. We've talked about the basic steps to clean it up. So specifically, do you develop your strategy? And then the steps to reduce or organize your emails by, number one, learning your email program inside and out. Number two, deleting or moving emails. 3, creating those folders so that you can put your emails into them for future reference if you want to or need to. And last but not least, filters. So rules or filters that you tell your email program what you want it to do with certain emails. And if this is what you want, then you may never see them. All right, they'll just go wherever you want. And then last but not least, we've talked about maintenance or best practices in general. So we have some time for questions. I am going to stop sharing and I will start my video and let's see if we have any questions. Amanda, I think you're tracking this. Do we have any questions?
Yep, so if you have a question on Zoom, feel free to put it in the chat. And if not, if you are on Facebook, in the comments there, I'm going to check the Facebook right now, and then you should be able to see the chat ones if anybody does have questions.
Yep, I see the chat ones, and I don't see any at all. So really, any and all questions. Let's see. Let me try to get this going. Maybe people will respond. How many people listening to this live use rules or filters? Can you reply in the chat box? Yes or no? That would be really helpful. I want to get a sense of how many people use that. And I'm not seeing anything else appear right now, so that's okay. We won't worry about that. Did anyone have any questions about folders? Or let's see, what else? The maintenance, the best practices. I think those are great. I love those practices. And we don't seem to have any questions. So I don't know. Either that's really good and I did a great job, or that's very bad.
That is what I am thinking. I am not seeing anything coming through the Facebook right now, but yep. If you do have any other wisdom or guidance tips that you want to give anybody to kind of conclude this out.
Sure, absolutely. So I think what's key in summary is take control of your inbox. Don't let it control you. If you dread looking at your email inbox every morning when you wake up, then it's time for you to take action. So again, whether you have 100, 1,000, 10,000, just do it. And I also suggest you can do it. You can spend like a half hour a day trying to clean it up, but honestly, it will take you forever. So what I find when I'm working with clients on productivity is carve out a chunk of time on your calendar. And on my calendar, I call it massive action. And so what I do is I designate every day a project that I want or need to take massive action on to move ahead. So maybe that would work for you as well. Massive action to clean out your inbox. And maybe you spend an hour or 2 hours, whatever, because the more time you spend, just make a dent doing it and make a dent getting rid of it. And I want you to think about your goal. I want you to envision opening up your email box and maybe only seeing 10 or 20 new emails that came in overnight. To me, that is so freeing. Psychologically, there's no stress, like, oh no, I can get through those with no problem. So think about the end result that you want to get to. And to me, that should be yet another incentive to just tackle this. And particularly now, if you're working from home these days because of COVID-19, maybe you have some free time. Maybe you don't because you're homeschooling your kids and you don't have time. But just consider doing it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. Let me see, let me just go back here and let me just show my contact. Is it here? No, okay. So, let's see. Oh, there it is, I'm sorry. So again, Brenda Tringali at your fingertips organizing. My number's here at the bottom, 603-490-6062. And, this is just a summary of my other services. But let me just go back here just 1 second. So hopefully you can see me. Again, there's my banner, Brenda Tringali at your fingertips organizing. And please reach out to me if you have questions. I'd love to help you.
Well, thank you, Brenda, so much for that wonderful presentation. I know I learned a few things, and I do use the Google filters on my Gmail account, and I find it super helpful for when I get updates or bills or things that I get directly sent to my inbox. I know to always look for the orange highlight on that. So,
That's
thank
great.
you so much for the wisdom and for the information. This is a great time for people to get organized. We've heard people organizing their homes or their pantries or their living rooms, but I think people need to look at their inboxes too, because sometimes it can get out of hand because it is
Yeah.
part of how we do business now and how we connect with people. So
Absolutely.
Brenda is always available for any tips and resources, and she gave you your information, but if you do need it in that future, feel free to reach out to us about that. It is also available on the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber's website. But you all have a great day. We will be live with more webinars coming up soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.